Imagine walking into a Canadian liquor store and realizing your favorite American whiskey or wine has vanished overnight. Shelves that were once stocked with US brands are now empty, leaving consumers and retailers stunned. In this video, we're diving into how Canada's sudden boycott of American alcohol has triggered a market collapse, wiping out exports, devastating farmers, and shaking the foundation of U.S. Canada trade. If you want to understand why this isn't just about booze but about the broader consequences of trade politics, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and stay with us because by the end, you'll see why Carney is slamming Trump and what it means for the future of American industry. The American alcohol industry has been a symbol of both economic strength and cultural heritage. Whiskey from Kentucky, wine from California, and craft spirits from across the country aren't just drinks, they're livelihoods. Millions of dollars in exports flow north to Canada every year, supporting farmers, distillers, wineries, and countless local businesses. But overnight, all that changed. A coordinated provincial boycott in Canada erased US alcohol from shelves almost instantly. What was intended as a political statement quickly turned into an economic crisis. This boycott is not just about sales, it's about influence. Provincial regulators weaponized consumer choice, turning Canadians' loyalty into a tool of trade enforcement. The ripple effects are devastating. Spirits exports crashed 62%, wine sales plummeted 67%, and Ontario's whiskey market fell 80%. For American producers, this isn't just a hit to revenue, it's a threat to survival. Empty shelves, the Canadian consumer shock. Canadians woke up to empty shelves in liquor stores across the country, a scenario that seemed almost unimaginable just days before. Popular American brands of whiskey, vodka, and wine had vanished virtually overnight. Retailers scrambled to adjust inventory, trying to source alternatives, while customers faced a stark choice: switch to domestic options or go without their preferred brands. The sudden disappearance of familiar labels created widespread panic, disrupted shopping habits, and highlighted just how dependent Canadian consumers had become on US products. For producers, the shockwaves were immediate and intense. Distributors lost contracts overnight, warehouses became filled with inventory that could no longer be shipped, and carefully calculated financial forecasts were rendered useless. Local economies in states like Kentucky, California, and New York, where these products are produced, began to feel the strain as orders were canceled, shipping routes stalled, and workforce demands fluctuated unexpectedly. The psychological impact on both consumers and employees cannot be overstated. Suddenly, what once seemed like a stable, predictable trade flow was replaced by uncertainty and disruption. The export collapse, numbers tell the story. The statistics paint a stark and sobering picture. U.S. spirits exports to Canada fell by 62% almost immediately, while wine exports dropped 67%, and Ontario's whiskey sales, a crucial market for American distillers, plunged by a staggering 80%. This wasn't a gradual decline, it was an overnight collapse, a market implosion that left producers reeling and struggling to respond. These numbers reflect more than lost revenue, they signal layoffs, canceled contracts with farmers supplying grapes, barley, and other essential raw materials, and the disruption of entire supply chains. Vineyards, distilleries, and associated small businesses saw months, sometimes years, of careful planning wiped out within days. What's worse, the market disruption threatens to have long-term effects on American branding and consumer loyalty abroad. Customers in other countries may now perceive U.S. alcohol as unstable or politically vulnerable, eroding confidence and trust that took decades to build. For an industry built on reputation and reliability, these effects could ripple far beyond the immediate financial losses. Ripple effects on U.S. producers, farmers, and local economies. The collapse didn't just hit corporate distilleries and wineries, it struck deep into the rural economy. Farmers who grow barley, grapes, and other ingredients were suddenly left with surplus crops and unpaid contracts. Distilleries and wineries cut staff, reducing hours or laying off skilled workers. Shipping and logistics companies faced canceled routes, affecting jobs across multiple states. Local economies dependent on alcohol production, small towns with bottling plants, vineyard regions, and ancillary industries, experienced sudden revenue shortfalls. Bars and restaurants that imported American brands also felt the pressure, as scarcity led to price increases and reduced customer options. The boycott's effects extended far beyond Canada, threatening the livelihoods of Americans hundreds of miles away. Canada's silver lining: domestic brands rise. While U.S. brands suffered, Canadian producers capitalized on the void. Domestic distilleries and wineries experienced a surge in demand, filling the gaps left by the boycott. This sudden rise reinforced Canada's economic resilience but also highlighted a bitter truth for the US: the trade disruption didn't hurt Canada, it helped them develop homegrown alternatives. Consumers, initially frustrated by empty shelves, quickly adapted to domestic offerings. Canadian pride in supporting local products strengthened, creating a lasting shift in consumer habits. What was meant to pressure the US ended up accelerating Canada's self-reliance in the alcohol market. Trade war escalation, the weaponization of consumer choice. This boycott represents a new form of economic warfare, one that doesn't rely on tariffs or formal trade barriers but instead uses consumers as instruments of political influence. Provincial regulators essentially weaponized consumer choice, turning everyday shoppers into participants in a broader geopolitical strategy. By controlling access to US products, Canada sent a powerful signal: political grievances can translate directly into market consequences, and loyalty to foreign goods can become a tool of negotiation or retaliation. For US policymakers, this serves as a stark cautionary tale. Protectionist policies or political decisions, if mismanaged, can create vulnerabilities that other nations will exploit. The Carney criticism of Trump highlights a failure to anticipate this kind of backlash, revealing the fragility of relying on what appears to be politically stable trade partnerships. The lesson is clear: trade is no longer just about economics, it's also about influence, perception, and the ability to react quickly to unconventional forms of market pressure. Companies, workers, and governments alike must recognize that even seemingly small political moves can have outsized economic consequences when consumer behavior is weaponized. From boycott to backlash, national pride and humiliation. The Canadian boycott was also a story of national pride, showcasing how a population can rally behind domestic products in response to political events. Canadians embraced the campaign, supporting local brands and celebrating the sudden shift toward domestic production, often seeing it as an opportunity to strengthen their own industries. Meanwhile, the US faced humiliation on the global stage. What was intended to be a minor trade dispute escalated into a full-blown market crisis, revealing the limits of American influence in North America and highlighting how quickly public sentiment abroad can undermine economic strategies. Producers, farmers, and consumers alike felt the sting. Exports disappeared, jobs were threatened, and the economic fallout rippled through supply chains that stretched from vineyards and distilleries to distributors and retail stores. The sudden shift demonstrates a crucial point: even powerful economies are vulnerable when trade decisions provoke strong retaliatory actions. In the long term, this episode may reshape trade expectations, consumer loyalty, and political calculations, teaching the US a harsh lesson in humility and foresight. The dangerous precedent: could other countries follow? Perhaps the most alarming consequence of this episode is the dangerous precedent it sets for global trade. If Canada can wipe out an entire US industry virtually overnight, what's to stop other countries from employing similar tactics? Mexico, the European Union, or even emerging markets could adopt comparable strategies, deliberately targeting American products to extract concessions or influence policy, eroding US market share, exports, and jobs with minimal warning. The American alcohol industry may have been the first major casualty, but it's unlikely to be the last if policymakers fail to learn from this episode. Governments and industry leaders must reassess the security of trade routes, the stability of foreign markets, and the potential consequences of escalating conflicts. Beyond economics, this case highlights the intersection of politics, national identity, and commerce, showing that industries can no longer assume long-term stability simply because trade agreements exist. The lesson is urgent: US industries must diversify markets, strengthen domestic resilience, and anticipate unconventional retaliation in order to avoid repeat crises. This crisis serves as a wake-up call for Washington. Policies that disrupt trade or fail to consider potential backlash can backfire, leaving industries vulnerable. Carney's criticism of Trump highlights the miscalculation of both the economic and diplomatic consequences. The lesson is clear: economic policy must balance domestic priorities with international realities. American producers, farmers, and workers are the ones who pay the price when political gambles collide with global markets. The collapse of US alcohol in Canada is more than a trade story, it's a cautionary tale about globalization, politics, and economic vulnerability. If this video gave you insight into how quickly markets can shift, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and comment below with which part of this crisis shocked you the most. Share this video with anyone who wants to understand how political decisions directly impact jobs, local economies, and everyday consumers. Remember, this isn't just about whiskey and wine, it's about the fragile balance of trade, the consequences of policy missteps, and the very real impact on the people who make and sell these products.